Welcome back everybody to the building of Evelyn. It's been a few weeks, but I've been waiting for a few things to arrive via the interwebs, and those things have finally arrived. The first thing is the accelerator pedal. This is off a Toyota Hilux. I'm going to make it work in the Celica because they're very similar. Second is the sound deadening going into the car, because right now it's got none. I got to put a couple new relays into the vehicle as well. This relay here, which controls my automatic fan via the temp sensor, that relay is just not working. It's not turning on when it needs to turn on. Whether or not I've got two wires coming off this and maybe the voltage reads differently, I'm not too sure, but anyway, regardless, I'm going to change the relay so that that's problem one eradicated. For like a super cheap relay, you may as well just change it. You'd spend hours and hours and hours of work pulling your hair out just to have a faulty relay, annoy the daylights out of you. I've got another temp sensor on its way. The housing is going to get put into this little tiny top hose of the radiator. That way that will send my signal to the temp gauge, and this temperature sensor down here will send the signal to the automatic fan to take care of business. So let's get onto it and start unpacking some stuff. And here we have the sound deadener. It was just some cheap stuff off the eBays. It is that, what is it, butyl rubber with aluminium top on it. The box is nice and heavy, so the stuff's not too bad as far as its thickness. It looks like it's got a peel off membrane on the bottom. I'm sure you guys have seen stuff like this before. And I got more than enough to do. Yeah, it's really sticky, geez. Yeah, that's sticky as. I got more than enough to do at least the front part of the vehicle, the firewall on the inside and the floor. So I'm going to get on to doing that. I'm going to install this and stuff around with that. Alright, first things first. Let's see if this fits. Which it does. Alright, so I'm going to need to do some trimming on this. This arm is just a little bit too long. I reckon only 1 inch is needed to be taken off this, and it'll line up with the cable there quite nicely. And also I'll be able to use the original bolt holes by the looks of it. Being a Toyota Hilux and this being also basically a Toyota Hilux, jokes aside, the bolt pattern literally lines up, so that's really good. It's so close, I'm pretty sure it's going to fit. If not, I will have to edit it a little bit, but we'll work it out. Also, this throttle pedal is quite low when it sits at that mount point, but it's not the end of the world. I can edit it later if I need to, and that'll just be a simple job of, again, cutting and welding. So let's go edit this wonderful piece and I'll go see if I can make it work. Alright, so pretty much I've cut this much off the actual pedal itself, and now I'm just going to basically butt those back onto there, weld them up, and that should give me you know, that extra little bit of shortness I needed for the cable coming out of the firewall. So let's weld these back together and yeah, see if I don't stuff it up. Alright, it doesn't need to be a neat weld because, well, you're not going to see it. But basically that's welded back on there. That should give me my inch of clearance I needed, just to shorten it a bit. It's still a bit hot, it's kind of burning my gloves. But regardless, I'm going to try and make this thing fit in. I think I'm going to have to shorten the actual pedal as well. It just doesn't seem quite right sitting in the car, but I'll cool this down. I'll go test it in the vehicle again and see where we're at. Alright, so a couple of things need to be done to make this fit. The bolt holes don't actually line up quite right, so I'm going to have to do something about that. If you can see up there, that piece there that's wobbly, that's the cable, and that's the hook it needs to go into. Now for that for this throttle pedal to stay straight, the hook piece is over to the left about 2 inches. So I'm going to have to get some bending done on this bar, just to try and move it to the right a little bit so it picks up that upper cable. Also, the length of the throttle is too long. I think I'm going to get enough throw up the top to pull the cable all the way, but I just think it's a bit too low, a bit weird looking. So I might shorten this as well by, I'd literally only want to go probably an inch, so the top of this pedal lines up with the top of that. So now I've got to pull this back off and get some bending happening, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to get away with just bending it. We'll see how we go though. Alright, so what I've done is I've just cut 2 relief cuts in the side of the bar and then simply bent the bar down into the relief cut, so it makes it a heck of a lot easier to bend the thick bar with making it kind of neat. All I'm going to do now is clean this up, weld those back together so we get the strength back, and that has literally put it on enough of an angle that I needed so that it matches up with the output throttle. While I'm at it, I may as well shorten this because I'm here with the welder, may as well do it now. Alright, so it has been shortened, and also with this, this pedal was on a bit of an angle like this. I decided to bring it back a little bit as well just by offsetting that cut. So it's now shorter and in the right position, so it should line up really well with the rest of the pedals. I just have to weld up these cuts and I should be able to give it a fit into the car. Alright, so we got some lovely welds going on again, just to join up that bend real well. So I'm going to cool this off, get it in the car and see if I've fluked it or not. Alright, so I just drilled 2 new holes because they're just not lining up properly with the original bolts that are in the chassis, but they're very, very close. So pretty much it'll just be some washers and nuts on the back. But it's pretty much lined up, which is great. Getting the nuts on the back with these screws will be an effort, but I might go see if I've got some longer screws. Alright, let's see how we go with lining all this up. Alrighty, so we're in, we're good. The accelerator is installed, which is great, and it doesn't bottom out, which is really good. I've got about a 2 centimeter gap at the back there, which is good because of underlay and stuff. I had to drill some new holes to fit the mounts, or the mount piece, and up the top we've got the throttle cable sticking out of the port there, and that is hooked into the pedal. And that's got full reach. The cable's not rubbing on anything as it comes out, which is really good. Obviously I've got to tidy up the wiring up here so it's like 100% out of the way. So really, I should be able to start this control throttle with my foot for the first time ever. It should be fun. I'm just going to go tighten up those bolts, and that's giggity for the throttle. That's great. Got a quick question for anyone who may know the answer to this. The car's been running for a bit, it's warmed up. I fixed the relay, the fans have turned on automatically once it hits temp, which is great. Right now I do have the temperature, the water temp gauge unplugged because I'm stealing the signal from the water temp sensor, and I can't run two things off it because it changes everything around. But basically the problem I'm having, when the car is warming up, the oil pressure gauge is absolutely fine at 6. It stays nice and solid on 80 psi. But now that it's warmed up and it's doing its little revvy thing, sitting on around maybe 500 RPM, the oil pressure gauge is doing this. Now that is kind of coinciding with the RPM of the engine. Every time that needle drops, the engine kind of bogs out a little tiny bit, the revs drop a little bit. When I have my foot on the accelerator though, there's no issues at all with the oil pressure. It sits nice and solid at, like, where's that at right now? 60, 78, so 78 PSI, which is completely fine. But as soon as I drop the RPM on the throttle, like this, it goes down. But as soon as I put the foot on again, it goes up. So I don't know if that's an engine issue or if it's just a cheap tacho issue, but if anyone's had this problem before, yeah, I would like your 2 cents, please. Also, just to go along with that question, I also received with the kit, I think it might be in here somewhere, not entirely sure, but it was also a oil pressure reader that goes into the engine. Obviously the car's already got one, but I don't know where it is right now. It's somewhere around here, but anyway, it's an oil pressure reader that screws into the block and reads the oil pressure. I don't know if that needs to be replaced or if that could actually be giving that bouncing on the oil pressure needle. But anyway, regardless, I now have a working throttle, which is great. Got to sit in the car and make real car noises instead of with my mouth. The relay is in place. I just have to clean up all these wires now. The thermostat that I'm going to use for the automatic fans is working fine, so once it hits temp, the fans automatically turn on. Fingers crossed that this radiator is big enough to cool the engine on typical driving. We'll find out once the car's actually on the road. I've got another wire here. This is going to go to the temp sensor. I'm going to have to wire that into the loom because I can't have two things running off one temp sensor because it changes the voltage signal and stuff don't work. So I've got another one coming for here. Apart from that, next time you see me, which will be like any moment now, I'm going to start putting the sound deadening into the front of the car. Should be fun. So literally I'll see you in a snap. And here we are, next day. We're about to put some sound deadening in this car. So I got to remove the two seats to get to the front. I'm not going to worry too much about the rear of it, depending on how much of this stuff I have left. Probably not a great deal, but we'll see. I'm not going to cover the whole floor. I've seen plenty of videos where people put sound deadening over every single inch of the metal on the floor, and it just seems like a bit of a waste because, well, it just doesn't need it all over every little tiny inch of the car. But all the flat panels, the big flat spaces, definitely I'll put it there. And I do want to cover the firewall as much as I can, because that's where a lot of the noise will come from the engine. So if I can get that covered, I'd be happy. And the two floor pans and just the sides of the tunnel there would be good. But first, to access everything, I got to take the seats out. Then I need to vacuum and wipe and clean and degrease and really make this surface clean so that the adhesive can stick well onto the metal so it doesn't peel back later. So let's get at it. And just like magic, it's all clean. You didn't have to see it. I'm sure you guys have seen people clean stuff before. So that's good, that's good. The ECU's just kind of laying over there because it's supposed to live there. Underneath the very, very top, there actually is sound deadening already. So there's no real need for me to put it up there. I didn't actually take it off when I did my dry icing. And there's no need for me to take it off, so it can stay, which is good. And it's also good because I will be able to save some product to stretch out over more of the car, which is wonderful. So now it's time to get the sound deadener, start to lay it into position, chop it up, and stick it down. These sheets are a decent size, which is great. I think I have 10 of these sheets. Surely I'm not going to run out. That's decent. Like one sheet is pretty much covering that whole floor pan. That's really cool, actually. So that's pretty cool. That's one sheet has done that whole foot area. That's killer, that's really good. And the top of it, pretty much, given a couple of inches, goes right up to where the original sound deadener ends. If I have any left over at the end of this, which I'm pretty sure I will, I can go back and just put a couple of pieces in there. But that area that's not covered is really solid anyway. It's got a lot of metal in it and a lot of bends. I'll put some over the tunnels as well. I might try and get one piece to go over that whole tunnel and cut a little segment out for the gearbox, for the gear shifter. I might even bring the sound deadener right over this open gap here so that it does keep all the noise from that gearbox down under the car. But I'm over the moon with how this actually fits. That one whole single sheet did that whole floor pan.
I'm not rolling it down super hard just yet. I need to work out. I don't have one of those rollers that you get with the kits, but I'll work something out and I'll get that really stuck down well in a minute. Then I'll continue doing the tunnel hole. I was a bit apprehensive about using this brand of Build No sound deadener just because of the price. It is one of the Chinese ones, whatever. For 36 square foot, I think it's like 3.8, 3.6 meters or whatever it is, squared. It was $119 delivered. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. And there we have it. First panel in. That's gone in really well. It's molded to all the lines great. There's no cuts in the aluminium on top, even though I was using my grandfather's panel beating stone block from back in the 40s. A couple of scratches, but absolutely no cuts. So the alloy seems to be thick enough, and it's molded. You can see right into all the edges really well. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a bit of work, a bit of elbow grease, but I will persist. I'm going to cut video because you've seen that once. It's exactly the same thing over the rest of the car, so I'll come back to you when it's all done. And here is the driver's side completed. Again, it worked really well. It's all stuck down real well, no cuts. No bubbles, I guess. And again, that one sheet has done that whole, the whole footwell. So I've still got 8 sheets left, I think, which is going to be enough for 2 there. Just because it's working so well, I'm going to rip this up. It cost me $16. I'm going to rip it up. I'm going to put this stuff down instead. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm only going to need one piece in the back because it's a very shallow seat area. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go 2 sheets in the back, 6, 7, and then the 8th one is going to be over the gearbox tunnel. So that's sorted. But yeah, it's coming up really well. Let's get to it. Just quickly for the center tunnel here. One piece is going to cover the whole tunnel, which is great. I haven't taken the sticky stuff off yet, so it still lifts up. But I just cut a little hole right where the gearbox pops out, so it makes life a little bit easier for me. And that there covers that big hole that was here previously, so hopefully it helps a lot with some sound deadening. And the screws I'll make just accessible if for some reason I need to get to the top hat of that gearbox. I had to cut some relief cuts. Sorry about this. Had to cut some relief cuts. One there, one there, and one there, so that it would actually fold down over the tunnel. Now it's just a process of unsticking it, smashing it down, and that'll be the tunnel in the front of the car done. And that is the center part done. Couple little gaps in it, which really doesn't mean anything at all. The main surfaces are covered. I've molded the deadener all over the top of the kind of gearbox mount area, leaving just a little bit for that top hat to stick through, which is great. I'm really impressed with this stuff. It's actually very easy to work with, although it does take time and it's a bit of stress, a bit of elbow grease. It's coming out really well. So I really couldn't be happier from a price point of view, and also just usability. I think it's going to be absolutely tops. So again, I reckon I'll just continue with the rest of the car, and I'll see you when it's done. Alright, just a, I don't know, progress report. I've got the front footwell done, the rear footwell done, and now I'm on to the trunk, boot, rear hatch, whatever you want to call it. It's fitting really well. That's molded in really nicely up under the up over the fuel tank and around the fuel pump. The sides have still got enough in that one panel, so that's one piece right there. It's one piece with a little bit chopped out for the battery and a little bit cut out here for the fuel pump. So I'm just about to do the other side. I'll put you guys down and you can watch how it's done again if you wish. Ta-da! And there you have it. Pretty much boot is done as far as sound deadening is concerned. I'm pretty happy with the coverage. I'm not going to put anything over these sides because it's unnecessary. All the major flat panels are covered, especially this part here, which is now really nice and solid. I'm pretty happy with it. So I've got a few more sheets left. I was going to leave the original foam padding in underneath the rear seats. They're very, very, very well stuck on, so that part of it's actually pretty good. I might go right up under the dash now and do a couple little extra pieces in there that I said I was going to do before. But apart from that, it's pretty much done. All the major parts are sound deadened, which is sweet. I am chuffed. But for now, that's going to do me. I will go under and just do a couple little extra spots around underneath the dash, just for the sake of doing them. You can actually use it to cover up a couple little holes to help stop any extra noise coming through those, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do. For example, the heater hole in the firewall where the heater hoses are going to come through. Soon I'm going to get myself an aftermarket heater unit. When I need to use that hole, I'm simply just going to puncture a hole through the the sound deadener to access it again. So covering it now is absolutely not an issue. And then anything I don't need to poke through the firewall, I'm just going to leave the sound deadener on it. So pretty stoked. Just going to finish up a couple little touchy things, but that's basically it. I'm stoked with how it's turned out, and for the price, I'm over the moon. I'll put a link in the description of the actual sound deadener I bought off eBay. It only took 5 days to get to me. This seller was based in, I think, Sydney or Melbourne, so it's good. But yeah, stoked if that helps anybody. Glad to help out. If you're just interested, then yeehaw. Till next time.